Introduction from Gareth Provost.
Hi, everyone. Hey, I don't know what happened to our slide there. Hackers. In either case, while we work on the tech, my name is Gareth Provost. Thank you for joining us here today. I own a company called Gap Consulting. We've been in the no-code space for about 6 years now. We started initially creating videos for just explaining for educational purposes what is possible with these tools. And it's always been our approach to just educate first and allow people to see the possibilities, and then to start working with clients from there if there is a need. And I'm here with my friend Rick, who I will let introduce himself.
Rick Palea, nice to meet y'all. Have to bring the y'all into it. I'm from Austin, Texas, so Austin in the house. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of SmartSuite. It means I look after all of our revenue and customer and potential customer facing interactions, the things we're doing to make you all happy and to make SmartSuite more appealing for the no-code community. As a kickoff here, Gareth and I were chatting before this around how many implementations we've done. Like, what's our credibility here? We're going to give you some ideas around how to connect workflows across functions. It's a pretty important thing. What kind of credibility do we have? So we started adding up, just roughly, how many implementations we've done, no-code implementations between Gareth and myself. How many do you think? 227. Okay, north. North. Hint, Gareth's been doing this for six years. He's got a big team as well, and he leans in on those implementations. We have about 20 people on the team. So, yeah. Numbers up. I'll just tell you. Not quite there. Soon enough. Yeah, over 1,000 implementations, and I've done 10. So Gareth has been very busy during this time. In my roles, I've been in the no-code space for a while. And most of my interactions have been leaning in on, at the right times, to customer interactions. So leading customer-facing teams. I love this. I love that no-code can provide value to any function, any industry, any region in the world. And the challenge with that, of course, is that it can provide value to any function, any industry, any region. So the focus on how do you get unique value to your role, to your function, and how do you provide it to others. So that'll be the basis of what we discussed today. I was hoping, and I'm assuming there are going to be any French in the audience? Yes. I don't know. What's the word for awesome in French?
I don't know the word for awesome.
Okay. Awesome. D'accord. Génial. Génial. Okay. Beautiful. I know that y'all love football. That's what we call soccer, but football. So a reference to Benzema or Thierry Henry or all the wonderful football greats of the time is in any sport. You name a sport, and the focus is, in order to be aware of what's going around, and in order to be the best at your sport, you have to keep your eyes up. Pick a sport, right? In football, you dribble with your eyes up. In basketball, you dribble with your eyes up. In baseball, you run the bases with your eyes up. Canadian over here.
He put hockey in for me.
I put hockey in for him. He's like, the real sport. But with your eyes up, especially in hockey, eyes up.
Definitely eyes up.
So the TLDR, I hope you all stay after I say this, but the TLDR, if you take nothing else from this, is the concept of building with your eyes up. Being aware of what's going on across the business, even if your role as a consultant, as a builder, as a citizen developer is to achieve a certain thing, a certain use case, is to look beyond that.
Yeah, I think the key idea here is that as citizen developers, which is where most of us start, we say, hey, we've got this no-code tool, we have a specific role within an organization that we are charged with fulfilling. How do I build and customize this tool to suit my role, to help me expedite my process? And the key takeaway over this whole talk, I think, is focused on not just saying, how can it help me? How can it help me streamline my process? But across the entire enterprise, across the organization, the different folks that I'm working with, the folks that rely on me for information, the folks that I rely on for information, they can all be using the same source of truth. And so we're going to build with our eyes up, and that will take us to our next slide. You want to take this one?
I would love to take this one. I spent a good chunk of my career at LinkedIn. Anyone ever heard? Social media platform? Yeah. A very transformative part of my career in the States and Australia. And I've worked with customers in many, many countries on all continents except Antarctica. And there's this framework that they kind of drilled in our heads there, and it's a really effective one. So maybe you can take this into frameworks when you run your meetings. It's to start every meeting, every event, every webinar, every session you do with, this meeting will be a success if. So let's establish that. I don't want us to get to the end and go, that was kind of cool. Nice job, Rick and Gareth. The point here is this is just a simple framework that you can keep in mind, and that's starting with a dynamic source of truth. Okay, we can all agree here. I don't think I need to sell anyone on why a source of truth is important. A single place where your information is verified as being correct. That's in a CRM, an opportunity, an account bit of information. That's in an IT ticketing system. It's that ticket, or a bug, or you name a function. You name a specific piece of data, and there should be somewhere that lives as a source of truth. And gone are the days of copying and pasting across systems and having things live this way and that way. A dynamic source of truth means it lives somewhere, but it's changing. It's ever changing, right? An opportunity in a sales CRM is changing all the time if your salespeople are working hard. A marketing campaign is changing all the time as you're moving things in flight. A product roadmap is, especially at SmartSuite, moving very quickly and evolving. So a dynamic source of truth, all right? Keep in mind when you're building things, that relational database layer, be it in SmartSuite or whatever else you're using, is to have that layer of consistency. From there, it's connecting your workflows. Think of any workflow in a business, any business process you can consider, it connects to something else. It doesn't operate in silos. But over the last 5-10 years, before no code, awesome, many folks were thinking in this kind of point solution mindset of wanting to have these workflows in silos. I want the best in breed this. I want the best in breed that. And then they were hopeful they can find someone really smart, like probably many of you, to connect all these systems together and create this Frankenstein solution. Now we're moving towards no-code platforms as being a smarter way to work, right? And that's connecting across functions, connecting these workflows. Last is, if you can do this, and we're going to show this a bit today, you then have your marketers understanding sales information. You then have your product people understanding marketing information. They're making better decisions because they have the data when they need it. And they're not hounding you on different forms of communication. They're not having to join every meetup just to get debriefs or digest on things. They have the information they need when they need it, and they're making smarter decisions in the moment. Very simple framework. When they do that, you then have a more dynamic source of truth. You're then connecting your workflows better, and the process repeats. So as you're thinking about your builds, I trust everyone here is a builder in some capacity. I'm going to presume, yeah? When you're thinking about your builds, really important to factor these bits into your framework. Anything to add there?
No.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Done. Okay. Setting the landscape. I'll be quick here, but 2023 has been a year, and we've been leading up to it. I'm sure we all feel this in different respects, but there's some things cooking, right? There's call it as it is. There's been widespread layoffs in the tech industry, affecting many. Those folks that are fortunate enough to still be employed in the industry are having to work harder, do more, having to lean on technology more. Hybrid working is kind of, we're working from home, we're back in the office, different companies are taking different approaches, but it's creating a need to communicate and collaborate in different ways. And then we have increasing generational differences. I've seen in this conference a widespread of different generations represented, each with their own needs, how they want to consume information, how they want to communicate. So you have to be ready to accommodate to all. If you're building for the way that you consume information the best, it's not always going to be a home run. It's not always going to be a success for all those that you're building for. Carry on from that, what do companies do when they have less people? They have to lean on technology, right? And this is it's a pretty wild stat. This is MuleSoft did a survey this year, 2023 survey. The average enterprise organization has 976 applications that they use. That mind-blowing to anyone else? Just that level. We know there's a lot. We know there's shadow IT, but that's a fact. And this is increasing every year. Especially with AI, because everyone wants to try it and they add it to their stacks and in all different forms. It's just compounding the situation, right? So tool proliferation, I always struggle to say that, but it's a great word, is a real thing, right? What are you using? Who's using what? Are you solving problems in silos? Is Mary in marketing using a certain tool that no one else on her team knows about? And she loves it and she lives in it. So this spread of tools, this proliferation, creates challenges of shadow IT. IT teams don't love it. And then the more your data is dispersed and moving between systems, even if you're using incredible integrators, your Makes, your Zapiers, your tools that allow you to flow data. If anyone heard Jonathan Ruff's from Apple Bank, his session yesterday, you know that the more tools you introduce, the more your data's at risk, right? And so your companies know that. So as beautifully as you can integrate all these things, less, generally better. This is just for those that want to actually have a maybe you want to have a conversation in your organization and you want to talk about how this scales out in this problem. You want to put a dollar figure around it. Average employee, based on a McKinsey report, spends 1.8 hours every day searching for information on their wiki, in their Slack, in their email, and you name the tool, right? I see a lot of nodding heads. Like we operate out of a lot of systems. So let's say that's 9 hours every week. Let's say that's, well, in France, that would be slightly less because you'll have incredible work-life balance, I hear. But in America, that's 20 hours a week. Yeah, 450 hours annually times your number of employees. Let's just even say like 1,000-person company. You can scale this down or up as you see fit. And if someone's getting, I don't know, $30 average hourly pay, the cost of that time in searching alone is a $13.5 million problem every year. Massive. So here's where we enter some personas and have a bit of fun. We're going to start with marketing and sales. This was the only redheaded icon I could find in all of Canva. So shout out to hair diversity. So we'll call that Rick the salesperson randomly. And then Gareth, if you want to jump in here.
Yeah, sure. So the idea, obviously, behind marketing and sales, and we don't want to necessarily belabor all of this too much, but the idea here, the key takeaway, is that we've got these teams that need to communicate cross-functionally. Because what marketing does is going to have a direct impact on sales. And the way that sales is operating is going to have an impact on what marketing wants to do and what their next initiatives are, et cetera. I'll let you read this slide, but you can, go ahead. Rick.
Yeah, I'm going to read all the words here. Just
Every single one.
There's a lot. Key points, there are many technologies used. In a marketing stack and a sales, like each function has an immense amount of needs, and perhaps they're leaning on point solutions, or they're finding a tool like HubSpot that can do a whole bunch of these. But there are needs that a marketing function needs, as well as for sales, and there are lots of challenges with the way that people are purchasing, B2B, B2C, regardless now. They take more time, they do more research up front, they understand when they get to that point of connection with a salesperson or a representative at a company, they're way more informed than they ever have been before. Harvard research study shows that 64% of a decision-making process is done before any interaction ever happens with a company. Right? That's B2B. B2C might even be more. I get nailed with Instagrams all the time, and ad looks good, I'm on it. No interactions ever. And the challenges compound, right? So we need to be quicker. There can be misalignment between KPIs that can drive things to be more challenging. But the ideal state, I always go back to the same thing as the customer experience. One team, one dream between marketing and sales is creating the best customer experience you can. That's before they ever interact with you, when they first, ongoing, and then afterwards. I'm going to put a sales hat on, after the sale is done is the most important time to lean in and help your customers because they're used to being neglected. It's traditional buying. You get your thing, it's on to you. Right? And yes, there's plenty of metrics that support this too, and I'm not going to go through them all, but you get it wrong, and it's very costly to your organization. From a time-wasting perspective, from a cultural perspective, you get it right, your customers are happier. Your buyers buy more often. You win more business. Your marketing revenue, your top of funnel, everything opens up, right? So I trust I'm preaching to the choir in saying this, but alignment between sales and marketing, just as two example functions, is challenging, but critical that you're thinking about this, regardless of your role in what function you are in specifically, is thinking about those other functions in the business that you work with. So,
all right, let me take this day in the life. But before I do, quick show of hands, who is in a marketing type role or works in or on? We got a few, just a couple. All right. Well, as small business owners, I'm sure we all wear this hat at some point. The larger the organization, obviously, the more siloed the work becomes. And that's really what we're talking to in this particular example is imagine that you are on the marketing team. You are trying to collaborate as best you can with the other teams in the organization, upstream and downstream. So take me to the next slide. I am a marketer. I am building marketing campaigns. Let's say, for the sake of argument, I build videos on YouTube that do moderately well. And in this example, I'm going to have some interaction with my sales team because I need to understand what's going on in that team because the work that I'm doing is directly correlated to what's happening a bit downstream. I'm hooking that fish and they're reeling that fish in, to speak in those terms. So the idea is I can be more effective as a marketer and a more effective team player within the organization if I keep, going back to this idea that Rick presented earlier, keep my head up when I'm building the stuff that I'm putting together. So within the organization, we could imagine a dashboard that looks something like this, where I can see not just my marketing campaigns, because I already have that information. That's like kind of what I live in, day out. But I can look at the sales information as well, but not all the sales information, because I don't necessarily care about everything that's happening in the sales pipeline. I might have very specific questions or things I need to look up at any moment in time to understand how I can better serve the team. So for example, here I've got my, take me to that slide. I've got my top deals in flight kind of with that grid in the middle there, so I can kind of see what are those opportunities that are getting close. I can track the stage, I can see who's in charge of that, all on this dashboard, again, with limited access. I don't need to know everything that's going on in sales, just the stuff that pertains to me and how I might build a better marketing campaign. And so I can drill into these even further. If we can go to the slide where I'm able to reach in, I can filter those, pop into one of these opportunities as an example here, and I'm not sure if you can read this because it does get a bit small, but I've got a plan to completion and a date up here of October 1st for a task of procurement process navigation. So I can see that in this case, I've got a particular teammate assigned here on this task. This is Jeff within my organization. He's on the sales team, and in order for me to be a better marketer, I can quickly look at this, ping Jeff directly within the actual opportunity that he's working on, and I can, if I'm with Rick's persona here, say something like, hey, where are we at in the procurement process of this deal? Who are the contacts? What's up next? And here's most important, in my opinion, would it be helpful if I turn the heat lamp on here? And how can I do that as a marketer? I can put forth some marketing campaigns, elements that are going to help Jeff get this across the line.
Jumping into a day in the life of sales, let's just pretend I'm Rick and I lead a sales organization at a budding tech company that's doing some cool things. Hypothetically, there's something that, well, first off, has anyone ever interacted with a salesperson before at your company? Couple hands. Okay. So there's this thing about salespeople is we can be pretty persistent when we need something. When we have a deal in front of us, when we have an opportunity with a customer, we're going to do what it takes to get the information we need, right? And that can often mean reaching out to the same person or multiple people on many different channels until we get the answers that we want many times a day, until we have what we need, right? This is I see some smiles. Yes, this is common. We do this, but we only do this because we care about the customer and getting the deal across the line. So yeah, you name your tool: Slack, Teams, Wiki, email. Sometimes you're as a salesperson, you're reaching out on all these channels at once because you need the info, you need the asset for that procurement person that helps them understand why your tool for procurement, or you need the latest, webinar that you've launched, and you don't want to go search through the wiki, so you're reaching out to Mary from marketing to get it. This is how it goes. Imagine a world in which you could have one place to go as a salesperson where you can get a lens into, in a very controlled way, just the information that you need to be operating on a daily basis quickly, right? I'm not saying it's not important to have salespeople on your marketing calls. I'm not saying you don't want to bring them in and tell them about your new product releases or your roadmap. Just know if they hear a roadmap item, they're going to start positioning it immediately. But for the actual day-to-day, if I want to lean into a marketing type dashboard to see what we're doing, right, to see where there's potential opportunity for me to connect assets, for me to push prospects to webinars that are coming up, right? Because the education process happens not just in the meetings that you're in, but it's those value-added touch points that you're doing outside of those meetings that are even more important so you don't fall off the map. And I can jump in here as a salesperson and I have all the information that my marketing team wants to provide and the ability to interact with that information. So I can jump in and see, content that's up and coming. I can see active plans that we have. I can dig into those active plans and I can see, what's upcoming, if there are any new assets that are on the way. I can see as well certain audiences that they're targeted for. As a salesperson, you don't send the same information to every prospect that you have, unless you have a really narrowly focused persona that you're going after, right? You send information that's relevant to the persona. And persona, for those of you that don't know, would be like the type of role that they're in, the function, the industry. They care about certain things, a persona. So an IT persona cares differently than a sales persona. We know this. So to have all that information handy and to understand maybe budgets and campaigns that we're doing there to the audiences, I can be in lockstep. So if I'm a salesperson with everything spinning around in my world and I have all these potential maybe prospects, new potential customers to go after, and I know that we're putting a lot of marketing out to the retail industry or to the HR persona, I might focus some of my efforts in those areas, right? Fish where the fish are. Be smart about the way that you're spending your time. And so this allows me the visibility to see all that and to dig in. And it also then allows me the ability to jump in and instead of using some old collateral, this is a very common thing where a salesperson or someone in the business says, so we've got this really cool piece of marketing collateral or case study or use case that I want to share with a customer. But then the marketing team says, no, that was from 2010. Things have changed a little bit, and we've got an updated version, and you cannot share that. And this happens when you have information dumped into a Google Drive or in kind of your more traditional, I don't want to say old school, more traditional ways of storing your information versus knowing what's approved, knowing who approved it, being able to reach out with questions, and just having this asset library that lives right there for the salesperson to tap into. They don't have to break their flow. They don't have to go jump into another tool. They're able to deploy this and then email out right from this to the prospects that are relevant. And I can filter down to like, who is this for? Is this director level type material here? If I'm sending something about, key business performance indicators or impact on ROI, maybe a user at a company doesn't care so much, but a director or an executive does. So again, know your audience, know what they want to see. And then let's enter product.
Great. Take me to the product slide. So general understanding here is obviously the product team is going to have its own unique needs. Again, we're trying to illustrate through this example that we have all these different teams working in collaboration that are able to do their jobs better with better information at their fingertips. So here, as a potential product person, I get a vision of the open pipeline of deals as I'm collaborating with the sales team so that I can better align what I'm working on in product with what's happening upstream in the organization. I can also see my active marketing campaigns, recently completed campaigns, etc., webinars that are coming up. These are obviously important to me so that as I'm rolling out new features for the product, I'm still in lockstep with these other teams as well. I think you're getting the idea, so I don't want to belabor it all too much. Let's save some time for questions too. But the idea here is just a continuation of what we're expressing already, that I'm able to see all this information throughout the organization, but only the stuff that matters to me within my specific role and allows me to collaborate with that team better. One of the things that Rick brought up earlier was this idea that as we're shifting to a hybrid workspace, or have shifted, I'm starting to see more and more reports that say productivity is actually down. We did better when we were in person. I don't know that I agree with those reports necessarily, and I'd love to have them cite their sources a little bit better. But if that's true, it's tools like this that can enhance collaboration and allow us to do our best work if we are, wearing our boxers in our, personal homes, right? Sitting in front of a Zoom camera with our nice button up. So the idea is that, it's these types of tools, and obviously you are all vastly aware of the potential of no-code tools that are going to allow our clients, our businesses, our organizations to really embrace the new lifestyle of work because they enhance collaboration directly in the tool.
And I'll echo again the power of having this information live in a single source of truth. This is not a dashboard that gets generated. This is not a report that you're sending through manually. This is visible at any time. And when things happen in the day-to-day workflows, when sales deals move, when more customer feedback comes in, this flows in real time. You have the most up-to-date information in order to make better decisions. So that's a critical piece of it. Enter leadership. We're not going to hit every persona, but you're probably getting the point. As you name a function in the business, and there is a way that they can benefit from this visibility across systems. They each have their unique needs. From a leadership perspective, I want to see it all. I want to know what's happening in our sales pipeline. I want to know the average deal sizes that we're working on. I want to know the IT tickets that are going through, perhaps bug reports that I can look at. I want to know where we're at on our OKRs. You know, the worst, does anyone know OKRs? So basically kind of tracking your performance indicators, your goals for a quarter or a month or whatever you set. And the worst time to be looking at these is at the end of the quarter when you can't actually change them. So ongoing, being able to have visibility about how things are moving in the business. Are people meeting objectives? OKR, objective key results. That sort of visibility for a leader, for an operations, are kind of interchangeable, right? Anyone here would consider themselves in an operations role? Right? Yeah. So operations people love to know what's going on in different functions of the business because their role, broadly speaking, there's marketing ops, sales ops, you name the type of ops, but an operations person role is to make sure that things are flowing smoothly between the business, right? They are the workflow conductors, if nothing else. And they need the right information in order to ensure that's happening and to see where the gaps are and to speed things up and to break down collaboration barriers, right? It's a lofty goal. I have a lot of respect for what operations folks do because there's a lot of data they need to take in, a lot of information, right? And they're constantly fixing broken processes or slowed down processes. So similarly, an operations professional would get a lot of value out of having that visibility. To be able to lean in and understand what certain teams are working on. It's just another way to visualize the data, but to understand at a team level, what campaigns are certain teams working on, OKRs, what sort of budgetary things are they working on. A leader needs all this information, right? They need to be able to see that. And personal take, gone are the days where you need an ERP that is a massively robust system that can allow you to orchestrate in between all that because no-code tools at a fraction of the cost and with more flexibility allow you to achieve the same thing. Hot take. I think you all agree with me, though. Yeah, and digging deeper on teams, you'll see, you know, at kind of what level are we with specific OKR tracking. So the ability to dive down into the weeds and go up in the sky and see things when you need to see them, where you need to see them. This is what it can look like visually. Probably have maybe some overwhelming views to this and some also, maybe some of the operations folks here are like, this is beautiful. I see Perry's going, yeah. This is just a data schema. It's a visualization of how your data connects across solutions. The key takeaway here is not like I orchestrated this beautiful spider web. It's if you're using tools that give you this connection, it does the connecting work for you and you can see where your data flows. You can see where there might be issues, where there might be gaps. All right, so
Can I add to that?
Please, yeah.
This is a plug for SmartSuite. I'm going to just put it out there. Each one of these colors represents a different solution. And a solution is, you know, a collection of tables. SmartSuite, one of the amazing things that it does is allows us to connect to all this data across different solutions. And so this is one of the most exciting features that got me really hooked in the beginning because I'm able to now say, hey, I've got this whole marketing campaign solution that is on one side of the business, and I've got this, you know, staff hub, employees, teams, whatever, that I need to connect to that information. I don't have to do any kind of sync, nothing weird. I'm just saying link point A to point B right across the tool. So that was a shameless plug.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you. All right, let's bring it home and then have some questions. Key takeaways, back to the three main points, is when you are building, when you're conceiving the builds, Garrett said it, I think, beautifully yesterday, and that the time if anyone heard his panel, he talked about as a consultant with 1,000+ implementations under his belt, 90% of the time he spends with his customers is actually just the consideration of the build. Not in the tool, it's mapping the process, mapping the flows, considering the stakeholders. It's all the work that needs to be done in order to, out of those 1,000, how many do you think were rebuilds where it's like, oh, lesson learned?
Honestly, it's at the point now where folks will come to us and say, hey, I've got this thing built in whatever platform. We'd love it if you would like take it over and make it better. And 99% of the time, my answer is, if you let me scrap it and start again, I'll do it. Otherwise, you're going to have to find somebody else. Because frankly, I don't want to deal with someone else's poor architecture. You know, and I'm sure you guys can relate as I see heads nodding, but when folks start building and they get excited about, even me, I look back at the stuff I built the first year I played with no code. I look at some of the videos that still get ridiculous views that I wish I could take down because I'm honestly embarrassed by how terrible the architecture was. But I'm like, well, I can't let that SEO go to waste. So, but there's some stuff out there that I wish I could scrub my face from, because it's not the best, right? I didn't even understand junction tables when I started. Don't get me started. So there are just like some core building components that I think when folks start building inside of no-code tools, they really maybe haven't mastered these, the right data schema. So yeah, a lot of rebuilds is the short answer to your question. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. So this goes back to the pause before the activity. If 90% of the time that Gareth has finally arrived at as being important before the build process, it's when you think about that source of truth, where is it living? Always ask yourself that question. How will it be used by other functions in the business? Is another question that I think is easy to neglect because you're building an X. So why does the data from X matter for Y? Oh, because it does, or because it might have to be rebuilt, right? Connecting those workflows, then I thought this was eloquent. I kind of made this up, but true value is realized when solutions transcend and integrate workflows cross-departmentally. I don't even know if it makes sense now reading it, but the point is connecting these. It sounded really good. I use the thesaurus on that and everything. Yeah, yeah. It's connecting between departments is where the value is, right? Anyone can buy a point solution in a certain thing. I'm not saying anyone can build an effective point solution to do X. Yes, everyone has that capability. But you're going to get not only more recognition as the builder, as somebody that is, considerate of peers and also building for the greater good when you're thinking about the other functions. But by doing that and bringing these people into the no-code world, we all have a responsibility here. I think someone said that in a session yesterday, but we have a responsibility as no-coders, I'm looping us all into the same family, of bringing other people into this world of no-code to help them get it. It's not going to be, Garrett's videos are probably responsible for like 95% of it. No. So like the YouTube content that goes out, of course, is helpful and all the information out. But it's the conversations that we have with our colleagues, with our friends, where we're telling them about, we're proud of what we built, right? I can imagine everyone here has built something in a no-code solution where they've been pretty proud of. They want to show their significant other, they're showing their dog doesn't care. But they pull this up and it's like, look what I did, right? So that connection between workflows and going wider is critical. And then by doing that, the decision-making process is going to be enhanced for everyone. So if you want to create this culture in your organization of being, a culture of builders, of creatives, of people that are not okay with the standard, here's the process we've been doing for 20, 30 years, and you want to stoke those fires of innovation, you can do it through building your solutions and considering others and bringing them into the fold. And if you're in an operations role, if you're in a sales role, talking to that marketing team and showing them, I really want to show you what I've built here for us, and I already have a connection point between marketing. What do you think about this? Then all of a sudden, you're the champion that's flourishing, and check out what Kelly built for us. And so I highly encourage that you take that sort of mindset. This isn't just about building something and having it, right? This is about making it valuable to your whole organization.
Can I interject there too? I think the flip side of that is not only are we sharing it with someone else in a different department and making their lives easier, but then the reciprocal becomes true. Because as we function better cross-functionally, that was a terribly put together sentence, sorry. But as we function better across departments in our organization, then we reap the benefit of that as well, because we have better information, we can do our jobs better, and ultimately the entire organization thrives.
Love it. Love it. Last piece on that around the decision making is I think it's important to create really easily, again, I think I made this up, digestible knowledge gateways. I don't know if that's going to hit with anyone, but just ways for people in different functions to consume information, okay? So if you're a marketer and you're trying to share some information that could be useful to sales, you have to put the sales hat on, because your lingo, it's important to educate across functions, but it's not always going to hit. A product person thinks differently than an IT person, than a marketing person, than a salesperson. We know this. So when you're presenting them things, have some consideration, but also just ask them. I built this, does this make sense? And be okay with them going, I wouldn't use this, this, and that, but that's interesting. Could you add this? The power of no code. You turn it around same day or maybe there in the moment. It's not weeks and weeks of traditional development of coming back. And that's when you start to impress people. When you share it with that marketer or that product person and you say, look at this, would this be valuable to you to have this information? And they say, oh, if it had that, and you add that, then you're a superstar. Yeah. So that's what we're aiming to do. Anything else?
Only other thing I would add to that is part of that is understanding the language of who it is you're communicating with, but also the way that they like to receive information. As a maker or builder, I'm sure a lot of us in the room kind of think of ourselves that way. I love looking at rows and columns, but I've got a lot of people on my team who do not understand rows and columns, right? So being able to present folks with the right visualization is a key component to these as well.
Exactly. There's this, I'll nerd out for a second. Has anyone heard of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming? It's cool stuff, yeah. So it's the science of understanding communication. I'm boiling it down to a really brief summary there. There's this concept in there that communication is what is received, not what's intended. Right? This applies to, this isn't like a business concept. This is everyday life. Every communication interaction you have with someone, right? Communication is really about how they take it, how they perceive it. So intentions, important at the end of the day, right? But you really need to try to understand, that's the whole concept of NLP, is trying to understand things from someone else's perspective, trying to maybe change the nuances of how you communicate. To Gareth's point about that is being able to visualize the same data in different ways is critical across functions, right? Be it calendar views, grid views, whatever it might be. And being able to translate that to each of those people is going to increase their desire to get in and roll the sleeves up, right? It's like you got to put it visually in their context and in their words. Last thing, again, back to the TLDR, eyes up. Eyes up when we're building. Okay?
Cool. Thanks, guys. Do we have any questions?
Thanks, yeah. Please, yeah.
Hi, I'm Rupert. I'm a known low-code consultant for a couple of years. Thanks a lot for that concise and very well-done presentation. My question is a buy versus build kind of question. So the no-code industry suffers from the same problems that the software development industry suffers from in some part, and that is we want to build everything from scratch again and again and again, right? So every software developer has built front-end wise, let's say, galleries, right? And every day, some software developer is building a gallery somewhere, right? It's not taking some library, some existing stack, right? We're in 2023, CRMs, for instance, you've showed all these technologies. CRMs have been around for 30 years, right? A lot of stuff has been figured out, right? Like Salesforce, for instance, you have 50 to 100 critical features that customers love, users love, use every day, etc. In my work, people approach me, say, I want to have a CRM, I want to build that on no-code platform X, right? And then we start from scratch, right? And build everything from scratch again. And we run into certain issues that have been figured out again and again and again. Like recently, I built a time tracking tool. We've bumped into issues we didn't really foresee. I love that 90% planning part. I'm certainly gonna save that, you run into certain issues, they're going to just happen again and again and again. And I think that's a risk that with these powerful platforms like SmartSuite, it's a risk that we're just reinventing the wheel again and again and again. That's also a waste, right? And suddenly we talk about efficiencies, but that's in the end wasting a lot of time, basically. How do you, I know it's a very open-ended, sort of open question, but how do you look at that, this sort of buy versus build?
Yeah, you actually started to answer it too in your question in the dialogue there. I think it comes down to if you're talking about building for a customer or for your own needs, in consideration of those functional requirements. Like if you're getting in and trying to figure them out on the fly, you're destined for disaster. It's like documenting them, and of course scope creep comes in. Somebody realizes they want something else after the fact. Another stakeholder kind of butts in and they're excited and they have their needs too. And it's tough to control. Like we've all built things for people before where after the fact they realize they needed more. But I think it's understanding the key functional requirements. The first list of things that comes to mind for somebody that's building or needs to build or whoever you're building for are generally going to be the most important because they're top of mind. And if you're looking at, be it a point solution or a no-code platform in order to do that, you just have to know over time, like, can they meet these functional requirements? Or am I really stretching the bounds? How critical are these? Okay, so there's 10 things that you have to have. If this no-code platform can't do it, I'm not going to try to force a square peg into a round hole, so to speak, and maybe a point solution's better. The challenge then comes with the trade-offs of, okay, so let's introduce this point solution. Let's introduce this one. Let's introduce this one. Since it's, a sticky web that we weave where people get stuck in this mashup of different systems, data doesn't flow well, and we're right back to the old siloed data problem. So my answer for that would be on a use case basis is just really understanding what's needed. And then having this is why we're all here, is to understand these tools that we can use, is to be able to dig in and know which tools might be the right ones for that. So, John.
Oh, I was going to get this one too. Go ahead, John.
I'll let you go first in case you were going to say.
All right, thank you. Just to add to this, from a consultant perspective, I think for us, it's about sitting down and creating those key features in the plan, right? So as we talked about, 90% of the work comes in up front. So we sit down and we map out what are those key features that are required. You mentioned Salesforce might have like 100, 50 to 100 best practice options. That's probably true, but if we started with all 100 of those, then we'd have a lot of noise in a space that isn't sufficient to the client needs. And so we identify those 10, 15 key things that they need, and then we build those things. And as the project evolves through time, because we find that our clients don't know what they don't know, which is true of all of us, as it evolves, they see something and they say, oh, this is cool, but can we add to this? Can we do a little more? And so, sure, we're going to have to charge you for that. And it's not nefarious. It's just, this is more than we agreed to. So we're going to need to add some more scope to this. And then ultimately, I love empowering our clients to be able to add these things on themselves and or rely on us for some sort of like ongoing support just to maintain the system over time. Anyway, I'm sorry, John, for interrupting, but I just wanted to interject.
No, perfect. I just wanted to directly kind of answer the question in regards to, from a consultant perspective, when you're providing the same type of work over and over to customers, there's two things in SmartSuite that you can take advantage of. The first is we have workflow templates that you can download. Those templates are dynamic, so as we learn new things from customers, better ways to do things, we update those. So make sure you share those with our team. We can get those updated, which should cover about 75% of what you need for a core workflow, and then you can add to it. But better than that for consulting organizations or agencies is when you create a solution in SmartSuite, you can duplicate that solution. So you can create your own template, you can duplicate that, and then you can publicly share that from your account to another account that's there. So we have a lot of customers that build their best-in-class CRM. That's always where you want to start using your methodology, and then you can share it. So it's different than our public templates. That's really your specific template that you want to share.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions? We have a couple. If it's a hard one, you have to go first.
So once you build your no-code solution and you make it a success story, how do you convince in your company, your IT department, to go through low-code solutions?
So we've actually worked with several enterprise clients over the years, and this is a struggle. As an enterprise, and I'm thinking of a company that has over 1,000 employees. Before they adopt a tool, usually they have to go through some vetting process in order to even bring that tool on. So there's been some sort of security check, and it's been vetted within the entire organization. It's generally like a yes, everyone at Acme company is now permitted to use this. Now, in terms of rolling it out to different teams, we find that generally happens relatively organically through the methodology that we demoed today. In terms of the issues with IT, I think it needs to be a conversation with IT that we're not taking away from them. We're actually making their jobs easier. But we also have to give them the tools with which to regulate and manage the tool that they now have, some oversight of. So if SmartSuite is getting rolled out to Acme Co., to multiple departments, IT needs to have, and does have, visual capabilities of saying, these people have these permissions, they have access to the data they need, and as IT, I have my abilities to take away those permissions as people leave the organization or get promoted, and I can elevate their permissions within an organization, etc. So I think it needs to be more of a collaboration between IT and the tool, IT and the organization that's implementing it. But I think it starts with, at least in my experience, having the conversation with IT that we're not taking your jobs, right? Which is kind of the initial knee-jerk reaction. IT says, well, it used to be that you came to me to build your applications, and now you're doing it yourself, and I don't like that. So that's, I don't know if that's helpful. Rick?
Helpful, yeah. A few pretty pointed takes, because it's something I've battled in being in tech sales for a dozen years. Knowing the process, so like individually, it's a lot easier for someone to try to develop some sort of relationship with their IT team in a curious way, where you just want to understand their process, like what they care about. Because every IT team and organization cares about similar things, but they all have their nuances, their differences. So the hardest time to bring a technology in-house or to get approval for something is the first time. Because after that, you've learned they shot me down here, there, they don't like this, they don't like that. And if you're perceptive enough, you take your notes, and the next time you get back on the podium, right, you've got that information in hand, and you're able to speak in their language and help them understand it. So, and that's just not no code, that's across any platform. It helps in a no code tool when you can build something for them. I just brought you this, right, because these tools are flexible. So you might be in marketing, you might be in whatever, but you're clever enough that you can build something for these folks, whether they want it or not, just to show them the capability. Plant that seed, and they might love a Jira, they might love, whatever they might be using, but you might show them something that they go, oh, actually, can it do this? Because IT folks are curious. They're going to want to know, what can it do? That's important to them. Know what tools they have already. Is there an incumbent? And is there someone in IT that championed that or approved that? Because sometimes it's not a boulder you want to try to move. I'll go back to Jira, fantastic tool. Like if that is so deeply ingrained in an organization and you whipped up a quick IT ticketing system, that might not be a mountain you want to climb in that day. Yeah, so that's my take.
Thanks.
Please.
Just two questions, please, regarding the presentations that you have made. And you say already that you implement more than thousands of times of no-code software. And one question is around the impact, and the second one is about the time. We talk about a lot of the constraints that the companies is facing. The questions that we'll have is, do you have some business case to explain what have been the impact of SmartSuite, for example, after and before, based on, I don't know, what kind of KPI you can give to us? And the second one is, we talk about persona, right? We talk about sales, marketing, but in company environment, you have multiple persona, if I can say so. Sure. So sometimes you want to shortcut a bit, you want to launch the product faster, and sometimes you have some people, sorry to say so, but slow down the process. So keeping people, frankly speaking, we know all of that, right? Yeah. Keeping people less, make it faster. Keeping big, make the things more slower, right? So the questions that I have is, do you have certain case like this? Like, in before you have 5 people, then the next time, the transparent thing is that it has to be 10 people, and then the time to market for a product, for example, increase from 3 days to 10 days, 15 days, because the process is really clean. Which is normally the use case.
I can confidently say I don't think anyone has codified exactly what it takes, and that's a challenge, but also the beauty of no code is every organization is going to have a different adoption path, and you have a decision as a builder or as a circulator of this solution to go like upward or sideways at any given time. And it's not always a clear path, right? Like you're in a marketing team and you want the rest of marketing to find value. That might be the easier path to go. Or if you have a really tight connection with your product team, showing them what you've built, maybe it's easier to go sideways. But the point is just involving more people so you can have more impact. And reverse back to your first question, the impact piece of it varies so greatly when you have different use cases and different. So you and I could sit down and we could go through here 10 different use cases, and here's kind of a value statement for each one. It often relates to efficiency gains, time saved, visibility, like kind of faster deal cycles when it comes to sales. Like there are hard gains to be seen. It just really depends on the use case. Yeah.
To echo that, we've not done a great job of following up about what the impact of any of our implementations are, only because when we finish, there's another project and we have to get to work, which is a good problem to have, but one that I wish that we moving forward, we need to stop, slow down a little bit, just so that we can speak to this point, because I think you raise an excellent one. Now, that being said, I can tell you on average, what we see in terms of automation is about 10, this is a big range, 10 to 20 hours per employee using the system is usually what we see in terms of automation per week utilized. So that's a lot of time. You know, in America, we have a 40-hour work week, regrettably. Yours? Mine is 40. Rick's is 60. But if we can cut that down by 10, 20 hours per person, that's massive gains, right? But we can't really codify the amount of time that's saved that's not spent looking for information. We can just kind of infer it. So yeah.
Can I add one more again?
No, your turn's over.
Give it back. I spent a good chunk of my career in HR tech, so I think about people and employee experiences and onboarding and offboarding and all that stuff's like near and dear to me, and company culture, right? But this is a real thing. You think about the type of work through automations or through kind of workflow platforms that you can save. Everyone in their jobs that they're doing, like I've never met a person in my life that likes everything they do. There are components of your job that I don't love that. It's the perfect opportunity for automation, right? And if you're automating those pieces of your job and you're spending more time doing the things that you like, you feel more fulfilled, you're smiling more at work, you're happy, all these things that like lead to more gains. And it's darn near impossible to put a quantification on that, but yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we getting the hook?
We're at 2:52. I think we can. Do we have
Anybody? Nobody? Okay, yeah, we can take another question.
I was curious. So you have your legacy players like Salesforce. Oh yeah. So yeah, I've kind of got a little bit of a macro question. You have your legacy players like Salesforce and HubSpot, and you're talking about sales. So I was curious from that perspective, how you think about your product, and then I think a lot of us here would appreciate and are probably here to try to understand like where SmartSuite fits into these different tool options. So if you could speak about like what it's a really good use case for, what it's not, how it compares against things that like, it's funny because like HubSpot and Salesforce are like a bit like no-code tools, but because no-code came after them, they're not really like in that group. Like you don't see them here, for example. So I was curious how you think about kind of the ecosystem environment of these different tools and no-code.
Did you plant him?
As a completely non-biased. Do you want to start? Maybe
No,
from
you
a
go.
broader perspective?
Oh, you want the broader?
I'd love to hear the
So if you just
agnostic answer before I tell you how wonderful we are.
Okay, so I think of no-code tools in three general buckets, and this is an overgeneralization, but this is the approach we take when we start to solve a problem for clients. We start with where's the data going to live. We then talk about, and this kind of goes back to one of your slides. So we start with where's the data live, then how is the data getting in and out and moving around, and then lastly, how are people interacting with this data? So we think if you solve, as a consulting firm, our approach is if you solve these three problems, then you'll have a fully baked solution for to roll out, whether that's internally, externally, both, right? And the way you answer this question is different depending on who you're rolling it out to and what purpose it serves, et cetera. So if I'm building a massive, second brain for my business, which I highly recommend, that, runs the whole operation that I want to use internally, I might use internal dashboards like the ones we shared here today, but then if I'm also bringing in customers to a portal so that they can have access just to their information, then I might be using a tool like NoLoco or Softer and say, hey, why don't you plug in here and take a look at, your private information. The automation component, obviously, if we can build it internal to the tool, we do. So SmartSuite obviously has that component as well. And then if we need to go outside of that to a third-party automator, which I just coined that term, then we'll use Make or Zapier as needed, right? So that's our approach. I think SmartSuite falls firmly in the where I can have my data live camp, and they have components of automation. They have automation in the tool that allows me to build a lot of what I need, but sometimes I need to go outside for those more nuanced third-party connections. And similarly, if I'm sharing information internally, I can use them for the interface component, if you will, for lack of a term in that third camp. But sometimes I might need to go outside of that as well for that.
Okay. So there's integrations with software and no loco.
Has that been announced yet?
As front ends, yeah. I would chat to the guys behind you. They could give you some good info about a pretty awesome front end platform, though. Yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you all for joining. I want to be respectful of the group here. Yeah. Cheers.